So I think we need to recognize that maybe three or four things. One, the Stoics held that our natures are social and that we're naturally attracted to life with others, and we live in, and they really thought, a kind of cosmos, a universe connected by the fact that we share in reason. And we happen to also share it with the gods and God, and that became important in Judeo-Christianity and the story that goes on from them. Two, but we need to have attitudes of social connection that don't put us at total peril of trauma, psychotrauma, we can use that term, soul trauma, when we suffer really, really tragic losses. Those losses, I think are going to be deeper. Heracles tells us something. The closer the outer circle is to us at the center. Where one of the writers tells us that we're in the center and there are concentric circles around us, and the ones closest to us are nearer and dearer, and we actually have to work on making that most outer circle as close to those that are inside. So because we're at peril of not being empathetic with them if they are so different from ourselves. We go tribal, get tribal. Yeah. That's essentially what he's saying. And so that said, we need to recognize given we're attached and given we're more attached to those closer, we have to protect ourselves a bit. Now, contemporary psychology would sort of say, let's protect you after the fact. You have all these losses, you feel guilty for the loss or shame for the loss. I could have done more to get medical help for my child. Why wasn't I listening? Why did I take my eyes off the jungle gym and my kid fell and had a concussion and maybe it's irreversible? That moment when the phone rang and I looked at my screen and there my eyes went away. Okay, all these moments, right? And so contemporary psychotherapy would say, let's try to expose you to those moments again and reconstrue what happened and help you get rid of some of your guilt. Let's take that kind of case. The Stoics have the reverse. Let's not do it after the fact. Let's do it before the fact. Given you're so attached to people, let's do it prophylactically. Let's rehearse. That's their term. Let's rehearse.
Sort of like a preventative medicine, you might say.
Yeah. Let's have clauses in our language. I strive for this and want it but if nothing prevents me from getting it. So they stick in these buffer zones. So we are attached in the biggest global ways, and more attached the closer in. B, given that, how do we protect ourselves from some of these losses? New labeling devices, let's call them not just external goods that are part of happiness, let's call them indifference that are outside happiness. That's the philosophical chopping and logic chopping. Not going to do a lot unless you train your emotions as well, and you train them in part through pre-rehearsal. I call it a version of exposure therapy, but it's prophylactic, preventive exposure therapy, as opposed to after the fact, which is a empirically based method for treating trauma these days. And then third, again, back to your question, which you led with, how do we reckon with the fact that we're social creatures and subject to loss? I do think they want us to recognize certain healthy limits, for example, on distress, that where we have some volitional control. Going to the mausoleum, which was an example that Cicero gives us in Tusculan Disputations, every single day to mourn your husband, the king, Mausolus, is going to protract your grief endlessly.
Yeah.
And so change your behavior. And so in Judaism, there's a period of grieving, and there's a period for the open wake in some religions. There are thought to be not only time heals, but ways in which rituals can kind of change and shift in order that the memory and not just the horrible pang of loss abates. You hold the memory without the horrible pang of loss. So it's a long-winded way of answering your question, but we are connected in very, very big ways, but closer to those that are more intimate to us. We feel the loss better. B, we've got to be able to sort of pre-rehearse potential loss. And thirdly, know that there may be reasonable limits on practices of, say, grieving, where we're actively contributing to the protraction of our grief.